All right. So good morning. Today is February 13th. This is a meeting of the urban design review panel. We have two projects to review today: Redbird North Wing and the Convention Center expansion. But before we do that, we need to review and approve the different minutes from last time we met, which was on January 16th. We reviewed Highland Village at the time. Do I have a motion to approve the motion? Thank you, Faisal. Will have a second? Thank you, James. Everybody in agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, the meeting minutes have been approved. Before Ray introduces his first project, which is Redbird, I want to acknowledge and share with everybody in the group on panel that Maria Gomez will be stepping down after this meeting. So this is her last meeting with us. And we want to recognize her work, her dedication. Thank her for everything that she has done for the last several months, years. Thank you, Maria. We'll miss you.
Thank you, I appreciate the opportunity, and I have really enjoyed it. I spent the time and hearing all the different perspectives from these students.
Excellent. Come back and see it.
I will.
Okay, with that, Ray, would you introduce the first project, which is the Redbird North?
Thanks, Rico. We have a full docket today, as you all are aware. We've got the Redbird team here that did the course before. So, you guys sit up for
Where should we put these?
just here, and if you want to like.
Good morning, everyone. I'll kick it off. I'm Peter Brodsky, and I'm the owner and developer of Redbird. I actually think that I should be welcoming you to the meeting because I've done more meetings. This is I think my 10th UDPRB meeting. What's that? I like you so much. And we are in year 11 of this development. We knew it would take a long time, but we're really pleased with the momentum and what we've accomplished. So the topic today is the renovation and repurposing of the last anchor building that we own. We've already been to you with the renovation of the Dillard's building into what we call the South Wing, which is now a medical and office building. Then we came to you with the renovation of the Sears building, which we call the East Wing, which is a 150,000 square foot UT Southwestern clinic. And this is the renovation of the Macy's building, which is the North Wing. And it is going to be turned into, on the first floor, a children's health clinic, 40,000 square feet. And on the second floor, we haven't signed a lease yet, so we just called it retail building. But it is a retail provider that the community will like. And they're on the second floor, and we're able to do that because we kept an at-grade parking field, an elevated parking field, so you can just walk right into the store. In a lot of ways, this is the most important building of anything that we've renovated because it is right at the front of the site when we drive in. It also is the most difficult building to deal with because it is a concrete bunker. And so we have gone through iterations and iterations and iterations over the years when we've been talking to prospective tenants. The other thing that's challenging about this building is that we turned a lot of what was the Macy's parking lot into green space and other retail. So all of the parking that used to be in front of Macy's is now green space for retail. And so one of the issues that we have had over the years with potential tenants is that they were concerned about their parking. And so I guess the last thing is that we've learned something from every building that we've renovated. What we learned with the South Wing was that you really have to do some selective demolition in order to bring more light into it. We didn't do that with the South Wing. And the result is that the spaces that we can, the tenants that we can lease to in that building are more limited because they have to be big, wide open office spaces, because they're so deep. We addressed that in the UT Southwestern building by putting in a small, what's the word I'm looking for?
A slot.
Yeah, a slot. And this one we're taking to the next level, and that is that we're gonna demolish about 40% of the building and leave it in an L shape. And the reason we're doing that is twofold. The first is that because it's a children's medical center, they wanted to have parking very convenient to their front door. And so by demolishing, about 30,000 square feet per floor, we're creating about 50 parking spaces right in front of their door, which was a requirement for them, particularly because one of the clinics they have is orthopedics. So they're expecting to have, children that are having trouble walking. The second is that by creating an L shape, it dramatically reduces the depth of the building. And you get two entire surfaces of natural light, which children's, obviously felt was very important in order to create the environment. So we're really pleased that this is finally happening. We do have to sign a lease with children, so we are full speed ahead on the design. And they are full speed ahead on their programming and their interior layout. And so that's what the folks at Parscale Group are going to present today. They did the West Wing, which you guys looked at a couple of years ago, and they're really a spin-off of Perkins and Will that did the UT Southwestern. So there's a lot of consistency in personnel here. And then Perkins and Will is doing the interior of children. So that's the topic of North Wing. There's one ancillary topic that I want to bring up, and we can address it more at the end. And that is that we are approaching the fulfillment of all our obligations under our 380 agreement with the city. And I am in the bit now of really trying to check off the list all of the requirements to make sure that we have fulfilled them. And there's one recommendation that you guys made. It was at our request. It was our idea, and it was about 8 years ago. And it is a recommendation that we would like to fulfill long term, but we are not going to fulfill, anytime in the next couple of years. And that is the wellness trail. So the original idea was to take the ring road, which goes around, the city wanted us to preserve, and around the interior of the ring road, put a wellness trail. And we've talked extensively over the years when we had a hotel site about preserving the wellness trail, et cetera. We're not going to do anything to prevent a wellness trail from happening. So we want it to happen eventually. But essentially what happened was the money that we had designated for the wellness trail got eaten up by high interest rates and construction cost inflation. So we just have never been able to afford, because it's obviously non-revenue generating. We've never been able to afford that amenity. And so my request is, especially since it was our idea originally, and the recommendation that you all made was a little bit vague. It said long-term, we would like there to be a wellness trail. I would like to clarify that completing the wellness trail is not a requirement of my fulfilling the obligations of the city agreement, because otherwise we will never, in the next 5 years, we won't fulfill it. I understand the financial model a lot better now. And with construction prices where they've gotten, there just isn't that excess money. So anyway, I wanted, this is the last one we're gonna be doing for a while, so I wanted to know that. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Ryan and Brandon, and then obviously I'll be here and available to answer any questions that you have. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the, and before we get started on this one project, since you brought down text, I'm curious what happened to parcel G? Can we do it with you?
Yes, so
What happened to that?
one of the greatest tragedies of my professional life, honestly.
I'm sorry to bring a tragedy.
No, I appreciate that. It is, it was not exaggerating. It was one of the biggest gut punches I've ever suffered professionally. So we had a lease with Tom Thumb. The city gave them a very, very generous incentive of $5.8 million. We went through over a year of weekly planning. We spent $1.5 million on architectural plans. And at the last minute, I literally thought that they requested a Zoom call with me, and I literally thought that the subject matter of the Zoom call was going to be the groundbreaking ceremony. We had already received permits. And they called and they had one final out in their lease. It was really supposed to be a due diligence out. And they said that they had concluded internally that the store was not going to be viable. There had been a grocery store open a little over a mile south of Joe V's, which has been it's the lower end HEB concept. It has been a phenomenal success. To us, that proved the demand in the market. To them, it represented basically a saturation of the market. We disagreed intensely. The city really stepped up and worked very hard to get Tom Thumb back to the table, offered additional incentives, but in the end, they terminated the lease. We had other leases signed for some of the other retail buildings. We had to terminate those leases. So it is intended that that will still be retail. And we are still actively trying to get a grocery store, but we've not been successful since then. So it was, to Tom Thumb's credit, they did reimburse us our out of pockets. So at least, I can say that, but it was, that was really difficult to swallow. The community was up in arms about it. But, we move forward. I will say that the strategy on retail has been clarified since then. And essentially, not just this parcel, but these parcels also, we envision as the retail section of the development. What's happened as years go by, so as I said earlier, this is year 11. So this is the Firestone building. It predates us. It's been there for, I think, decades. And, when I bought Redbird, there was about 15 years left on their lease. And now there's about 3.5 years left on their lease. And so that will open up a very attractive hard corner, 3.5 acre parcel. These little office buildings have always been viewed to be temporary. They cash flow now, but they're not strategic. And we own this parcel as well. This is the Chuck E. Cheese that we do not own, but it's a very successful, high quality, retail experience. And since then, 2 exits have been added on I-20 at Westmoreland. So this road is increasingly becoming a busier road that makes it more appropriate for retail. So as we think about, moving the retail exterior and creating more of it, we really think about this as an entire retail quadrant. But we're very particular about the retail we want to put there. We committed to the community to do things that were high quality, that weren't the usual things you find in underserved communities. And so we're gonna wait to develop it until we can deliver what we promised and what we believe the community will want. The last thing I'll say about that is that with the addition of Children's in here, and you may recall that originally Children's was going to sublease from UT Southwestern on the second floor. The reason why they did their own lease is that UT Southwestern has been so successful at Redbird, they decided to expand upstairs. So right now, there's 65,000 square feet of shell space on the second floor. So that means that sometime during the course of 2027, as this project completes and this project completes, there's going to be over 100,000 square feet of new activity on the Redbird site. And we think that will drive more demand for retail and restaurants. Is that helpful? Okay, thank you very much.
So as we discussed, the north wing is the topic of discussion today, but Peter's going to overview the entire site. We really need to look at that in the context of the mall and so, as Peter said, this is the fourth and final modification to the anchor tenants. West wing was demolished, south and east have been renovated. North now we are using as both an opportunity to create a new visual marker from the primary entry from the north, as well as a connection through. So you see the two primary landscape outdoor common spaces in the property are what's known as the lawn here on the north side, and then what we call the entry to the west wing. Both of those connect through into the center court of the mall, multi-story space with the skyline, connecting through the building to connect these two outdoor spaces. So the demolition of a portion of the north wing provides space for parking as required from the tenant, but also shortens that distance going from the exterior into the mall proper to that center. From a concept perspective, what we're doing is taking that lawn defined right now, just on one side of retail, what would be defined on both sides, and extending that through the old facade of the north wing, all the way through the entry point there. I've been planned looking at where the pedestrian pathways are, pulling out through, finding that alignment, the center of the lawn, and creating a new entry to the mall proper. We do narrow down, but bring through a large plaza space, and then define that further with an entry canopy that's required for those two tenants. That entry canopy provides a covered drop-off, an entry to the split condition of that tenant on the ground floor, and it brings up the entry point to the mall.
Can I jump in with one thing? It was a concession by Children's to have two separate spaces that are disconnected. They really wanted the whole thing. But this corridor is important for us because we use the center court over here, and we use the lawn for public activations. And so it was really important to us that there be a connection there. So we were really pleased that we were able to convince Children's to agree to put the two together.
So on level one of the north wing, you have that activation, the primary clinic entry here, as well as the secondary clinic space on that side. The building is 2 stories and has a second floor entrance on the west side of the building here. That second floor is currently shelf space for a future retail tenant. The other component we're dealing with is a mechanical penthouse space. Proposing to maintain that, even though it will not be used, and clad that in a way that marks this as a entry to the mall proper. That is, again, in line with the lawn and the entry to the mall there. It will serve as a visual marker both for vehicular traffic coming into the site, as well as any pedestrians that are in that space and looking to make their way to site.
One thing is on the kind of general progression from the lawn across. So we have an existing condition that whenever all the infrastructure project around the campus was redone, it was placed in an existing kind of vehicular table here. So this is actually flush coming across. So we're tying right into that and bringing it. We're adding some trees to try to help slow down some traffic. It's been noted that people can move through that pretty quickly right now. So just visually to help bring that down, we are going to add some trees. But also one of the challenges on the development was programmatically for the clinics, they desire a close drop off and a covered drop off, obviously, the ailments and orthopedics. So we have the challenge of saying, how do we marry up these kind of vehicular dominated conditions with pedestrian dominated condition? And so by trying to combine them together and put them behind a bit of a landscape barrier where you actually have to pass behind, it also raises the flush. We try to create a scenario where we could keep that as protected as possible for the pedestrians moving in, and not also have a little bit of a serendipitous moment as you move into the space. And then you're on the inside of this canopy and you have these trees growing out. It allows light closer to the windows of the building, so we don't get this dark condition at the entry. We just think that could be a really interesting space for the people, and also opportunity to have that on the way into the mall as well.
And so lastly, a couple of architectural moves. We're pulling both from the landscape of the lawn itself. You see the planting beds and other walls and seating areas take on a Crinkle form. We also, in the west wing, cut into the ground floor. So as you proceed down this ramp, navigating the grade on the west wing, you come into the building not on axis, when you bleak and slowly slip underneath the building. So there's a language both in landscape and the architecture elsewhere of these subtle kinks. We're doing a similar move, again, subtly here, to take some views, particularly on the west side of the lawn. As you approach, we wanted to be sure that there was never any confusion around where the entrance to the mall was, what the primary purpose of the extension of the lawn was. So we pull back the facade in that case to keep the visual of the mall entry open when you're standing on the lawn. That's the west side of the lawn, east side of the entrance.
Where is that shot from exactly? On that one.
So this would be
West corner. Right there. Yeah, near it.
right there. So on this pedestrian path on the west side.
Thanks.
And you see that there.
So as Peter was saying, the existing building is very robust, both its cast in place structure as well as the exterior skin. So we think that, trying to maintain some clarity over where the intervention was made is going to help us kind of have a cost control moment, but also, kind of make the architectural move much more clear as this chunk was taken out. And then using the material palette that's been throughout the rest of the campus with these interesting brick patterns, and just kind of matching a lot of the glass moves and some of the brick detailing that we're pretty proud of on the rest of the campus, incorporating that as well. Good. I think that's
Anything else to add?
There, one thing I neglected to include when I was talking about the retail is that the reason why retail makes sense here is that when you're standing on parcel G, this really feels like part of the same development. It looks different from this perspective, but you're standing there and you look right up and you see the retail sign. And so that's why this retailer wanted to go here. They're anticipating being part of this retail cluster.
Great. Thank you, guys. So let's do our usual, let's first ask any questions that we may have before we offer feedback. Okay? Yes, Roger, any questions for this thing?
I was just looking through some operating. I actually they've done a touch with the
Okay, well, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really understand yet the parking that's on the second level.
Oh, sure.
How do you get there?
Sure, yeah. So whenever the grading on this property used to look very different, when it was redeveloped 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, This section was built with a retaining wall around this edge, so it raises from even with the drive, it raises up to the second level, which is about a 17-foot difference between parking here and standing down here. So it grades up on that section of the retaining wall. Yeah.
So in a zoomed in view here, there is a retaining wall here that then turns, and at its highest point, there's about a 16-foot difference between this parking field and the side.
And where do the cars go in?
They enter on this far side, so it's propped out of that, and
Yeah.
they enter on this side.
It would enter
So the
here.
ground is at that level.
Correct.
Yes.
It slopes down from that entry down.
Which is very common.
Yes, it's on the slope.
It was always a second level entry. I mean, most malls, you know, you can enter North Park on the second floor, Neiman's, or you can enter on the first floor. It was always that way. We just,
So on level one, this back wall is a basement addition. So it's kind of like a walkout on level one.
Oh, so to clarify, when you say medical clinic tenant on level one, the whole ground floor is rooms?
yes.
And the whole second floor is retail?
Not the whole. The retail is gonna be about 25,000 square feet, and then there'll be about 15-ish thousand square feet that we will, if we get an office tenant for there, we're leaving room for an elevator lobby. So we'll pop in an elevator there.
And what was the reason to not have children on the second level?
That's actually one of the reasons why they were reticent about UT Southwestern. They would not go on the second level.
They happen to have second level.
They wanted the first level, they wanted to be right at the front. So we showed them every space we had available on the site. And this was the one that they wanted.
Yeah, I think that's sort of piggyback on that question. Is there a change? You mentioned here that UT Southwestern's been really successful in expanding. Is there an option for Children's to expand into that retail space if they said, hey, wait, this is.
So Children's asked for a right of first refusal on, they did ask for a right of first refusal on the second floor in case they change their mind later. Although we excluded that retail space, assuming we get to a lease with this particular retailer. So that's exempted because that was pre-existing. They also, interestingly, asked for a right of first refusal for all of this space in the mall.
Yeah.
Which is a separate building technically, but it's obviously attached. So they weren't ready to lease more than 40,000 square feet. In fact, I think we're pushing the upper limits of what they wanted. But they are anticipating the potential that they would want to expand their future.
So that was my only other question. Kind of bland comment question, but I was gonna ask you if you mentioned orthopedic treatment. So without the trail, have they considered, would they be willing to help build something that is, I was thinking about an area or internal mall? I don't know how the mall space is used. You said it was a civic gathering, but is there an option for something like active space?
I'm not sure where we would put it because they insisted that this all be parking because they were so focused on convenience for their patients. You know, keep in mind that we have an outdoor play area over here. We've considered putting an outdoor play area on the lawn as well because we think that would activate once we have restaurants. The downside of the active play area is that we use the lawn a lot on weekends for big events and it shrinks the amount of usable space. So I mean, they might be interested in it, but they're building a $5 billion hospital right now, so they're pretty capital constrained.
Yeah. I was thinking, I guess if they consider rehab space or.
I don't think they would do that outside. This is where the orthopedic space is gonna be, and it's a 10,000 square foot building, so there'll be plenty of rehab space in there.
Thank you, James. Any questions? What do you think?
Yeah, my main question was about the materiality. I think I heard you say cast place concrete is supposed to be the original building,
Yeah, the structure.
the structure. And what about like facade materials for?
The skin is an assemblage of, reinforced concrete block and then like an inch aggregate skim coat on the top.
And then in terms of the drop off, what kind of dimensions are you working with right now? I know that my own experience in hospital drop offs is they tend to grow to like 14 feet each.
Yeah, and that's what we try to, right now, we're working with a bypass lane and a lay-by lane. We've got each of those at 11 feet.
Okay.
Okay, so we're trying to get plenty of room there. And then right now, the distance between what we anticipate the structure will be and the plans are right there is around 5 feet to pass by.
Yeah.
But since it's flush, we were thinking that it could be a little, somebody could find their way, just walk straight probably too, if they get up, since it's all up at the same level.
Okay. Yeah, that's my only question.
And so,
So, on level 2, there's no, the only area where you have any windows is on the west side, right? There's only the entrance to that retail space and it's full there, so you're anticipating something like a Target or something like that taking on the entire spaces. There is no activation on the west, I'm sorry.
On the east side.
On the east side and the north.
yes, the understanding is it's a large retailer who values that as merchandise.
Yes, so we don't go to retail malls much for outstanding architectural features and cultural resources. However, you have and are showing that you will be demolishing the porticos from the old Sanger Harris building. And I didn't look into this enough earlier, but it would appear that that those are iconic images from 1970s design, that they are artwork. There is an artist. The materials, the glass tiles, the marble tiles come from Italy. And you appear to have the last one. And so are there any provisions being made to document, preserve, interpret, incorporate, anything on these kind of, again, they're probably the best architectural feature there has been at this location, but I don't see any provisions for them. Are there any provisions for them at all?
Not at this time. Okay, the understanding and research at other previous Sanger Harris buildings is that the expense of conditioning, removing is substantial.
Yeah, so a couple things. Years ago, we looked at whether or not we could take part of the mosaic and inlay it in the ground. It was literally millions of dollars. And also when you get up close to it, it is in absolutely terrible condition. The other thing is, we thought about this because obviously we understand, and we actually had some talk to community members about it. And the general consensus was better to have a functional building with windows. The issue is that in order to get light into the building, we have to knock down this part. Well, that means this is where the portico is. We thought about keeping it on the west facade. It's a smaller one. It's only one level because it goes in on the second floor, but no retailer, and particularly the retailer we're talking to, wants that as their entrance. They want their signage at the entrance. And so in the end, we just concluded that there's a reason it's the last one, is that nobody else was able to save it. I also understand that this isn't an original design. It was a copy of one of the other ones. But we did think about it and we ended up concluding that it just wasn't feasible to preserve.
Thank you.
all I have. Thank you. Would we like to start with the feedback comments?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, first, thanks for coming forward with this. We have always appreciated the hard work you've done at this facility and are encouraged by not just what you've been able to do here, but I think the ripple effect of this project in general in the community. And in a part of town that really needs something to cling to, needs example of how to do things. And so, great that you're working there. I don't want to belabor it, but that transitions me very quickly into the disappointment over having a known final remaining, pretty important cultural feature in an area that didn't receive a great number of cultural features in the past, and that there's just there'll be nothing left of it. Is not the kind of thing I would hope for, but I hear your explanation. Otherwise, I'm very supportive of the project. It's it all makes sense. Again, its heritage of a retail mall. And what y'all have done and continue to do is soften that much, where they'll typically really inside buildings with the outside, and some buildings don't have a back door. Shopping malls seem to have nothing but back doors, and that's what you inherited with this. And I appreciate the effort that you've gone to in making the entrances and the new additions, a modification and an improvement. Now, I will say I really do like the mechanical penthouse treatment. I think that's a clever way and a pretty powerful way, actually, to communicate more than just the text to those who use the mall. So that's kind of my comment, Karen. I think I appreciate y'all's effort here.
Thank you. Makes sense?
Makes sense.
Understand? Okay. Yeah, I'll launch in.
I think you guys have done a great job of using the lawn to make it a very clear access for this entrance. I think it's thoughtfully done. I appreciate the way the drop off has come in under that canopy, sharing kind of that access with the pedestrian access on the closest to the main building. I just think it's well done, having taken that 40% of that existing building out makes a huge difference for what this development can be. So I'm excited about it, and I appreciate the efforts, and think that from a design standpoint and from a landscape standpoint, what you're doing makes a lot of sense. So
Thank you.
I also want to echo the congratulations. I think it's very successful, very logical, which is super important for patients, especially first-time patients entering. I think my sort of to the same tune as Norm, I wish that there was some way to pay more homage to what was there before. The artwork is stunning in the paving. Some sort of way to capture some of the memory of the site, to honor it. I understand that would be above and beyond. They're always paramount, but potentially in paving patterns or in wall treatments, some kind of way. I would love to see that in the landscape design. My big comment is about one of the applicable urban design priorities that have been laid out for you is about maximizing capture and reuse of stormwater. And I didn't hear anything about that. I wonder if the parking lot, since we're taking out building for parking, it's not exactly a better infiltration moment, but potentially the materiality of the parking lot or even the grading of the parking lot could serve that purpose. I think that's the only big missing item for me. I think the plan is really successful.
Yeah, I second all of that. I think it's great. I've been on the panel since late 19 or early 20, so Peter, I know you've been here a lot. Appreciate it. It's really great. I don't have a lot of comments. My only thought was, okay, if I've got to struggle to have a comment here, I was putting myself as a parent. I've been trying to remember how many emergency trips I've made to children's, at least one, maybe two, and then Medical City, and I was thinking, you know, when you're there and you're waiting, you know, whether it's routine or it's scheduled or it's whatever it is, you know, you're trying to find things to do. So that's why I asked the questions earlier. Is the rehab space, the internal space, you know, if it's conditioned space? I guess my comment would be, it'd be great to see a place for, kids that don't know, you got a sibling, you got another child with you, you're waiting, you know, as a parent, you're doing that. And then I wasn't aware, I didn't remember the Ring Road, you know, I think my only other comment would be, I would hope that maybe the park department, or someone could help kind of pick that up if you are able to, you know, to do that, you know, if there's a way to make that happen, so that you just kind of have that space for, you know, waddle out while you're waiting on an appointment, you know, or something like that. So that's my only comment. Otherwise, I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. So both is
I would get fingers struggling also. I think what you outlined, the conflict between the pedestrians and the cars, and how you're trying to figure that out, is very difficult, but I was wondering, if there was a possibility like here, right before the drop off, if you could have some kind of destination point to anchor the mall that you currently have. Right now, from
Sorry,
that.
could you maybe use these and share with
Oh,
everybody?
yes,
So that everybody, what you're.
yes. So where you have plaza here, that could have enough space to have, some kind of destination point, whether it's the artwork as a visual focal point, just something to anchor the mall and really end it on a high point instead of a narrow entryway into the drop off. And here also, the century point, from the elevation, it seems blended as if it's part of Colburn instead of the public passageway that it's supposed to be. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of creative way you could articulate in the facade to really differentiate it and make it clear that it's different from children's or walking here beyond education. And then another thing I was saying was, so this is if this is the extension of your mall, this is your frontage. And then I saw this staircase here, so I was wondering if this could be moved somewhere in the interior so that this frontage really continues along this public corridor. And the public corridor is really an extension of this mall. So all of this frontage is really where you want all the activation to happen so that you lure people in.
Yeah, that staircase is the elevator lobby that I mentioned.
Oh, I see.
So it's the only way we can get up to the second floor without going through the retail. It's not existing, we're putting it in, but there's the retail store is gonna be like this
On level two.
on level 2. The rest of level 2, we're gonna try to lease. It's about 15,000 square feet for office. It's pretty attractive office because it's got all these windows and it overlooks the lawn. So there's gotta be a way to get up there.
I see.
And you can't do it over here because it has to be off the public corridor.
My thought was that you're gonna come from that elevator into this lobby, immediately out of the elevator to have this view out of this major kind of facade with the glass
I see.
out into the treetops. That was a beacon.
I see. And then one other minor thing was, you know, I think this retail on the second floor has an amazing spot. So I was wondering if you could lure people from this ground level and bring their way up here somehow, so that how to bring people that are in the lawn up to here to this retail. There would be an opportunity there. 17 feet, so it's a lot of stairs.
Yeah.
Take a break.
It's good for the health.
Yeah, I mean, we actually,
Slide down.
we didn't put it in the design we actually have considered putting a big staircase here. And the question is gonna be budget, because it's safe to say that retail does not pay very much rent, but we need retail. And this is an incredibly expensive building to renovate because of its materials. It's not steel, we considered knocking it down at one point, and it's incredibly expensive to knock down just because it's so stout.
Concrete,
It's concrete.
can you share those thoughts with some folks here at City Hall?
I digress.
So we have thought about that. And it's possible in the future, but right now, the budget doesn't allow for it.
Is it currently sloped or? is
Yes,
it-
sloped, yeah.
I mean, if it was level at the ground floor, you'd be able up here.
Yeah, no, it's a slope down.
Oh, wow, that's a big.
Oh, the other thing, just in response to your comment, we agree with you that we want this to be clear that it's the main entry, and that's really what this is supposed to do, because it's right above the main entry. That's why we're branding it Redbird. Otherwise, this is the children's building, basically, but we're putting that big Redbird sign so that people, which is visible from everywhere, so that people see that this is a Redbird building, and it kind of leads you right in.
Maybe it's part of the shade too, that I think you may, if you're, yeah, I think it's that black bar that's kind of, for me visually, is also blocked, and the trees. I don't know if you mean both the trees and the shade structure.
Well, this is solving a programmatic requirement
Yeah.
we have to do. We felt that it was better to break it away, and we haven't decided on tree species yet. Maybe it ends up being more ornamental. But trying to allow light in there, you're totally right. It would get super dark if we pushed everything up against the thing. Thank you. Yes.
I'm going to start, of course, by congratulating you. It's lovely project, and it's done a really beautiful job of raising the quality of that part of the city. And, it's sort of a challenge to think of something that we can bring to try and help the project. I think you've done a beautiful job.
Thank you. I will say that we've done 10 of these, so we've anticipated a lot of the things that you have said in the past.
The one place that I see some potential to do something, and I'm hoping this isn't an expensive idea, is this discussion about connecting to eventually the retail on G back to that retail on an upper level. I too have wondered about that little path that goes, the ramp that goes up. But actually, I was more interested in where the big red line is that says east-west section. That's the primary entrance to that upstairs retail.
Yes, it's the only entrance.
So if you were down on this wonderful new retail area G, and you were heading up to that retail there, foot, there isn't really a pedestrian route through that whole roundabout parking area. And I wondered if there might be an opportunity in the layout of the parking on the foot, and slightly widen there with sort of trees and pedestrian routes up that ground.
So that parking already exists, but there may be a way to create a path, at least a visual path.
Swaps and because there's no, I was looking to see if there was another route, and the retaining wall there facing north, so at least it's not going to be too hot, but it's still not that nice walking on the retaining wall all the way down and then making your way up that place, so that wouldn't be a nice route. That would be maybe a bit more protected. And I do see that there are trees along the retaining wall. So potentially that would be a route, but actually you probably want to just go straight rather than find your way around.
Yeah.
And I think that's a small opportunity that I can see, but
Thank you.
It's very well thought of, so congratulations, that's really well. If you want to go further, then I have a couple of suggestions.
Great.
First one I had is, I don't know that what probably additional content that they're adding. And is that access control, or specified some way, what your group or anybody else can park?
It is not gonna be access control. There are 50 spots. 40 of them are going to be labeled as exclusive to children's. We're not gonna police it, but we hope people will honor the signs. But it won't be access control.
Because one of the things that, knowing is, one of the people park there might be either patients or kids or sister. I was thinking, and it's fine the way it is, but if you should choose to maybe let go of the four spaces, maybe create a pathway from that parking that will be dedicated with a wider aisle in between, that crosses across and brings them in a designated path through the sidewalk, either on the south side or the west side. I see one of the renderings of people are crossing across the driveway, and that was really that's in line there. Given the potential, use of the facility.
I'm not sure I understood either.
There's an existing sidewalk here.
Yeah,
That
no,
we're
I'm talking
trying
about
to,
the people who cross, that's not in the middle of the route, I think, yes, right there. So if you can either bring your gate south, you don't need one of those. Right now, the lake is wide, and just saying, little bit left or right and up or down to create that. Like I said, if you want to go above and beyond that. But for the drop off, I would encourage you mentioned it's 11, I'm glad somebody asked. I think it's better to go a little bit up. Because 11 alone, it will work, but by the time you open car doors and stuff, it will get tighter. If you can leave the drive through at 11, but the other one, I encourage you to consider if it's 14. You may just try the outer edge of it, if people know that hey, look, the outer edge is intended for, because if those people are gonna come to drop off somebody, they're gonna be dropping off on the passenger side anyway, right? So if you make that 14 and strike off the outer 3 feet, it really gives very safe space to open car door. Make it easy for somebody in a wheelchair or whatever to do whatever they could do. So that was the only feedback on that, but it is very well. I was thinking the way we can get to the drop off lane without going to the parking lot, but it has more cons than, so that is why I think. But I do think that if I'm a retailer taking a second floor space, I do want my restaurant to have the ability to get down to the green space, which is very nice space like it. So and I see there's only 60 feet, barely 60 feet in that green space that is totally down. You probably have to cover 12 feet. Okay. So it is difficult to make that work, ADA accessible route. But is that parking existing, which is the grand entrance?
There. We have to create the handicap parking, but the rest of the parking, that's a strike. The rest of the parking is there.
I mean, it's just a decision for you down the road, if we can ask or not, but I think it's supposed to think it would be important amenity for any potential users. And now would be the time to, basically, I would say, relocate that parking, and then you have some space available to get into the switchback and or something that is possibly long enough to cover a 10-12 feet difference and give you a path down there. But I think it would be good for everybody to get that. And then people can walk from there, come up.
Fair enough. Thank you. And you guys, so either Ryan and Brandon. I echo everybody, all the comments that you heard here. Great to see you back here, and great to know that Redbird is progressing, moving towards its target. So it's stubbornness, right? So that's a good thing.
And a lot of Xanax.
So thank you for championing that. I think everybody recognizes that. But while I applaud the fact that the mall is alive and well, thriving and looking forward to the future, I have to say I'm a bit disappointed with the current plan.
Really?
And yes. So I was very excited when I first saw that portion of the plan over there. That was several years ago. right? When you guys decided to create that, I'm calling the front lawn, I can't remember how it was described at the moment. A front lawn, community lawn, I thought that's brilliant because now all of a sudden you have a connection, a true connection between the mall, which used to be this gigantic building, a sea of parking lots. Now there's a live connection with the city. And I envision, okay, that maybe in the future that will, extend towards, what is it called, Camp Wisdom? And certainly to the mall, humanizing it, making it embraceable, approachable on foot, as close as it can be to a real city. But then, and this, by the way, very, very nicely done, of course. The UT Southwestern Clinic. I remember we reviewed the western portion, very nice. But the bringing a clinic here on the ground level, and breaking the continuity of retail of this community public space, a live space that you have a beginnings of right here. I have to say, it's disappointing to see that because we know how clinics work. We design clinics, I design clinics, and yes, they have lots of requirements, and you guys did a great job responding to those requirements. The canopy, the light, the approach, the proximity to the entrance, all required by of that. I understand all that, but the fact that forever that potential, that promising connection between a live retail community, picnic space will not happen, will not get to the mall front door. That's a little sad. And that's why I was thinking, and some of my peers here alluded to this fact, and I think, Peter, you already addressed it, but guys, it would be perfect if the clinic took the upper floor with its own dedicated entrance here, that we thought about that. In the same way that UT Southwestern Clinic has its own dedicated entrance facing east, this one would face west. I know there is more retail to come here. Sure, can be organized, can be arranged. No conflict, no traffic. So their own parking lot, close, very close, just like you showed there. Very close, drop off, the clinic straight to the clinic, future growth on the second floor. Is there a second floor on the mall proper?
Yes.
Yes. So it would continue growing on the upper floor of the mall where your retail started, right? And reserve the ground floor for retail. That way, that lawn will continue all the way to the mall, surrounded by retail, and that would be the postcard. So, once again, I'm sure that you guys tested it, and but I have to bring it up because from an urban design diagram standpoint, that's what this promised. And now it's a little true.
Well, I hear what you're saying. Unfortunately, the market disagreed because we actually had a site plan at one point that did not have this. It was just this. And this was intended to be retail facing this way. And then this could be turned into a big box facing north. Nobody was interested in it. And in fact, the retailer that we have finally got interested specifically rejected that idea. They did not feel that this was enough parking to service both, that this was enough parking to service a big box here and a big box here. And they did not want to be part of a retail environment that included interior retail. Interior retail is extremely difficult. And in fact, if I'm projecting forward 5 years, I don't think that this will continue to be interior retail. I think we will find some other use and all of the retail will be moved over to here to a retail environment because that's what retailers want. They're competing with the internet and they want people to pull up, walk in. They don't want people to pull up, go in and search around for their store. So we just have been unable to market it. The honest truth is, if I could wind back the clock 10 years, I would have demolished this building entirely. I would have put the lawn right here, right in front of center court, and I would not have done this demolition. But those were decisions we made for good reasons at the time, and they're done. We can't demolish that building now because we've got this elevated parking building we've already put in, and we've already demolished part of the mall. So I hear you that would have been ideal, but we had the same idea. We couldn't get it done. And the way we're looking at this now is that the mall cluster over time has evolved and will continue to evolve to be mostly professional use. You know, we'll have 240,000 square feet of medical uses there. Upstairs in this area here on the second floor, we have a 50,000 square foot Dallas College Workforce Development Center. This is over, I guess it's kind of over here. We have a call center. We've got other office spaces. And basically the strategy is to use that to draw people to the site so that at noon they get hungry, it drives demand for restaurants, it drives demand for retail, and that this becomes the traffic generator for all of this retail. Because we've been trying for 10 years to attract retailers back to the mall, and nobody wants to do it.
Because there isn't yet enough food traffic, as you say. But now with the clinic and other tenants and hopefully the expansion of UP and the new children's clinic, well, you will double the amount of food traffic, and that will bring retail.
It will bring retail, but not inside. It won't happen.
Will it bring retail over there?
I think it will. I think it will because the workers, you know, there's an exit from you, there's an employee exit from UT Southwestern here. There's an employee exit from Children's here. So the employees will go have lunch. We do think it will. We do think it will.
And wouldn't that be the ideal scenario to continue that concept into here, into Center Court?
Yes, but after 10 years, we're following what the market demanded, and like I said, we marketed a space up here to Children's, we marketed a space over here to Children's. We showed them everything, and that was what they selected. And in the end, that building's been sitting vacant for a decade. This is a great use. It's great for the community. It drives traffic to the site, and ultimately, we think that this will be a very successful retail cluster on the whole site.
No question, it's great for the community. No question, it brings traffic and my piece with the again using the term that I used before, the promise of that initial group of buildings there that now sort of it's half fulfilled.
I hear you, but we tried to create the path here to create this axis.
All right. So with that, I mean, with that, I don't have the solution. Saki, other members of the panel here made comments about it, but at the very least, we encourage you to make this. And I don't know how to do that. Can't really on the fly here, but yes, we have requirements for particular drop-off, etc. But this must allow for pedestrian traffic up and down. As James said, if you take your child there and the child is in the clinic for 3 hours, whatever, where do you go? You are stuck here. Well, it would be nice if you tell that you could walk and grab a Starbucks over there or whatever happens over there. Or maybe a sibling that gets a young toddler that gets very annoyed after 10 minutes. Well, take the toddler to this little lawn. Let run. Yeah. So that's the kind of of a pedestrian more so than vehicular. I know, once again, we have to drop off, we have to get close to the door, but if there's something else that we can do to encourage, that pedestrian connection to. We can work with that.
Even seats. Like one of those trees.
Yes, that is mentioning.
And put it in the east-west direction, just to help the block. Open up a lot of flexibility.
So the challenge there is because these two suites are separated, they both demand. So you said putting it up here.
No, right here,
Oh, yeah.
in this area, and then just go straight out.
Yes.
It will open up that area for, a little bigger, more defined.
Exactly, if you look, would happen like so,
Yeah.
and then this, that would be a dramatic change, dramatic improvement.
We were really trying to keep that out of the certification mix.
Yeah, I know, but would you rethink? I know, we know what you did, what you tried.
Parking spaces, because I think it would be beneficial.
Consider that, we'll study it, okay? Because it's not, I think you'll see the value once it's built, you'll see, oh, okay, I get it now. So, please take that, we'll study it.
We'll have to consult with Children's as well, because
Yeah.
their programming will be affected by where their entrance is.
Where's their front is there? So one front door there and another there. Okay. Any way that front door, we don't know the layout. Is there internal layout already?
It's being developed.
So it's being developed, that's good. Could you work with them and have that main access point instead of there, could it be here so that if the drop-off canopy is there, then patients would walk this way, midpoint to there
I
and
actually think it's quite nice that it's way back there, so you get some activation on that longer side.
Right, but
And the shopping mall is separate from that.
The concern I have about that is that if the drop-off is here, you have cars going right by our main entrance.
No, if the drop-off is there, the loop wouldn't, this would not be,
This will not be
the cars would do this.
Yes.
They drop off, and you enter here or you enter there. And this just, yes, nice that there's a door, but if that is instead an extension of landscape. So landscape and canopy, so everything comes together here.
You lose about 10 spaces there. That is possible, I think that, because it's suggesting, I think it is.
No, we'll study it. Yes, it's hesitant. Look, guys, you have talented people with you, either Ryan, Brandon, take the recommendation, these are suggestions, slash recommendations. Take them back, as you have done in the back. Think about, please, I would like to help you. That's it. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else? Any other comments that we would like to share?
I have one quick question. So when is, what's your timeline? When is demolition scheduled to begin on this project?
Thanks for any questions.
June or July.
Okay, thank you.
You want to go on with one last time?
Huh?
I'll get one last time.
No, I think some documentation of the last one is appropriate. Yeah, and so that, slow Saturday, there's such thing as a slow Saturday, might get a few bucks.
And that's great. Please make sure to capture, the, comment regarding documentation. Set norm.
Documentation of the mural.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everybody.
And are you guys okay with the clarification on the wellness trail?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So then, I'm going to recuse myself from the next project.
I would have to figure it out. I'll put that into the market. Especially when it's making.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you know me. Hey.
Thank you, good to see you. Thank you. So long. Thanks, Arthur. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where do you get? Oh, yeah. I tried a week ago. Oh, nice. Grill up. Okay.
Morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. This is just a small filming project for us this morning, but just in case, I want to make sure it gets plenty of time. We've had a couple of our members recuse themselves because of their involvement in this project today. And I've had one comment about someone who needs to leave early, so in quorum paranoia, does anybody else on our panel have a hard stop deadline this morning? 11? Okay. Hour and 15. That's true. Good morning. I'm Norman Alston. I am a vice chair of the Urban Design Peer Review Panel, and I'm going to have to step in and conduct the meeting this morning. We welcome all of our guests. We're all, I'm sure, excited about a chance to review and discuss one of the major undertakings in the city right now. Is something about this project seems to be in the paper and on the people's lips daily. And so, so I also expect a robust conversation some today. So thank you all. We will do today as we typically do, and that is, our panel will be given an opportunity to ask first we'll be given an opportunity to present, and not wishing to cut anything short, but do be mindful of the time, because we, 10:30 and 11, it's going to start getting a little critical. And so I guess we will begin by team introduction, and go ahead and get started with what you'd like to tell us this morning. Okay.
All right, great. Good morning, and thanks for having us here and getting a chance to really describe the project. My name is Ron Stelmarski. I'm design director of Perkins & Will, overseeing and the perimeter of the building. We've got the rest of our team leadership here because it's a massive team. So this is really a small team. Yes, we have Tom Weiss-Wickler, managing principal. We have Blake Lane. He's our mobility expert. John Stracius, he's one of the project principals. Matthew Crummy, he's a project architect and really focusing on sustainability efforts. Of course, we have Paul Ward, who's up here talking a lot about the urban design and the real, that's why we're here. And I think Terry's over there. Yeah, Terry Hurtberg, most of you know him, landscape architect. We're trying to ensure we cover all different components because there's such a complex project as you stated.
And also Windale with this fire.
Okay. At the city.
Okay, great. So we have a series of boards here, and we're going to walk through one by one. We'll keep it concise. I suspect you'll want to have dialogue, or you want to just present first, and then
I will. Oh, we're good at dialogue. So why don't you give us, a relatively high level, just walk through.
I'm going to bring these boards over here because I think this is going to be the most sort of descriptive. What's that? Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. This is not real thing to you. This is descriptive in a good sense. I mean, maybe you're familiar with the site, maybe you're not. We're looking from the south towards the north. Union Tower here, of course, City Hall where we are today, Memorial Arena, and the project site. Now, we made sure to outline the project site because everything we show is really indicative of the larger, broader 40-45 acre area. But our scope is only this zone here. We don't have a major influence on everything else. Now, the easiest way to describe this is the project wants to essentially get out of the way and allow for development to happen, allow for connectivity between north and south, okay, into the Cedars, south and southern Dallas. Currently, so as I probably know, spans this direction, east to west, with this being Lamar and then Griffin weaving through here. Again, we take this whole building, rotate it to the orientation we are today. A couple things happen. It does open up development and really opens everything to the sky. But what's really interesting about it, it's very fortuitous orientation because this is essentially south and north. So where all the noise, the hot sun from the west, rail tracks, highway is happening, that's really where our Lot E, which is our marshalling and loading zone, a lot of, we'll call it back of house, even though it's still visibly have the backside. And then the east and northeast side is really the area of interaction with the public in a major way. But also, we've got great views of the downtown skyline, so opportunities for lights and just general transparency, outdoor terracing we'll talk about. One of the major pieces, of course, is this building is predominantly lifted almost 30 feet off the ground. And the way it meets the ground is going to be what we talk a lot about, because that's really along the lines and wraps around ceremonial, because that's where it's going to have the most, overlap between private and public spaces that happen along that zone. Paul's going to go through a lot of detail, but we've got, a dark line that goes under the building currently. That will not go away. It's going to stay there. And so we're going to contend with, I like to think about this as being like the most 21st century challenge out there, because we're looking at all the reminders of the 20th century with, of course, the UP rail line. There's a lot of hydrological issues in terms of water itself and the kind of the amount of rainfall we get. But then we also have, the brand new idea of mobility, and there's potentially streetcars and bike paths and trails. So I think the way it weaves together is really pretty piece. Well, that's much. I can keep going on and on. I want to explain to you the real essence of the idea of what you see in the architecture itself. I just talk about this network of arterial and more local roads, and how our job is to weave those together and ensure that we don't, put anything at risk. We actually want to create much more connectivity. But I also like to show that this is artificial infrastructure, and we have the trinity of natural infrastructure. And we're sort of up at that middle zone. So this whole project has to do with a lot of overlaps and these sort of shared contours. What I mean by that, look at this map here. So many different distinct neighborhoods, development parcels by multiple developers. You can see we're moving from somewhere that is really the edge of downtown to really, periphery condition to something that is really the center of future development that goes all around it. So I think it's a really interesting proposition of, edge to center. Now the architecture evolved out of this diagram. I think it's a pretty clear diagram that this site is not very regular. If you see the site that's outlined there, that is our footprint. And we're constricted to work east of the UP rail, largely because of the way there's no ability to cross over the UP rail, to get permission to go over the rail with any kind of timeline or schedule. But when you look at this site, you see how each neighborhood comes to bear on the building. It actually takes advantage of that irregular site to let it feel like it's really receiving each of the directions of these neighborhoods into one architecture, which ultimately lands to something here. We talked a lot about this concept of the Dallas World Stage. At the time, this early energy phase, we knew the Memorial Arena would be there, and we knew this was going to sort of become that backstop of that conduit from north to south. And then we talked about what happens in between, become that real point of arrival, the heart of the city. We really hope this becomes the gateway to downtown going forward. So this view, and I think this one's interesting because it's probably the most descriptive. And what it does here, we're looking south for just floating above Lamar Street. You're seeing the stack of the building. I'll go through more of that in detail, but it's really about this very human-centered design of the streetscape. And again, as the others talk about that, you'll see that we are doing all we can to help invigorate this and keep it lively from north to south. This entire left side of the image, that's all future planning. So we show it vegetated. By no means are we trying to imply that it is green space. But we'll have planting along the street. Whatever happens on that site is to be determined by future scope. But really the stack here is interesting because it starts at, as I said, 30 feet above the ground. But at the lower level, you have retail in this zone towards the south. You have a public zone, the park that Terry will talk about on that side. Our signature public plaza right here, which is on our site. And then you've got the Great Hall, which takes you all the way up. Again, that is sort of the stack program. So where many of, I guess, competitive centers, they sprawl, they go horizontal, they can walk a mile. We've all been there, right? We walk that full mile to get to and from each space. This one stacks, and in fact, the compaction of the site is an advantage for the operations. So you come to the Great Hall, and all are connected to that one Great Hall. You go from this stack, which is the exhibition level, this level is the meeting level, and this is the ballroom level. Each one of those has its own respective outdoor space. The views, again, right to the downtown skyline, probably the best view of our downtown skyline from this vantage point. So we talked a lot about convergence through that diagram, and then emergence, the idea that people will see the city differently. You'll have a chance to get some fresh air and some great views. Dark lines over here, so you see everything's drawn together for the full composition of how this together. So one more and deal with the call. Step, quick step. So you can see here, everything in gray is essentially the buildings above gray. Everything that's color coded and these darker bars indicate where infrastructure, program elements, the Great Hall, retail, touch the ground. And again, that's how you can see the activation along our, I mean, this is an urban road. You've got the whole public activation of the park, you've got art, you've got retail, you've got vehicular access for parking that happens beneath the building, and then you have more retail. So every edge is articulating something slightly different, which is nice. It's not a monolithic way of organizing space. You can see here in yellow, the first level, the exhibition hall, 750,000 square feet. What's really dramatic about this is that it's a single floor, 750,000 square feet contiguous. That's something the city doesn't have to. They've got about 725,000, all at slightly different levels. I think we've been there before. It's a series of dog tails all put down one to the other. One giant contiguous space can be broken down into multiple shows at one time. And we have the next level, there's a meeting hall, so you have about 180 to 89 meeting halls right here. And then you have one more level as well. So again, it's very clear that people are going to be seeing people. So we're going to have a real nice connection always to the top and you get up to the roof stage, which, you know, we can talk a lot about sustainability. We can go into the detail if you like. The roof escapes are going to be PV ready. This time we're still looking at budget numbers to understand how we make everything work. But this is going to lead to all, it's an all electric building, so it's decarbonized. We're going to have, I think, the walk store of our building itself is at 74 currently, we're probably 92 as future development comes around. We have 75% waste diversion from the site, and we're preserving some of the slabs. Anything else that happens from demo or new construction, 75% is being diverted from the landfill. 45 EV stalls are planned for the ground level. So we're doing a lot of these, I would say almost invisible, they're so embedded into the actual design that it's not an overtly sustainable building. We see everything point to them. The building's behaving like an organism in a way that really trying to be as generous to the surroundings as possible. And in fact, the shade it creates around the edges is something we don't have right now. It's currently the second worst amount of people in the US in this area. So it gives a growing shade as a tree managed. That's all. Thank you.
Everyone. Okay, so as we look at the site plan, I think one of the things that stands out is just the overall scale of the project. It is a roughly, give or take, 40-acre site. The built area of the convention center itself is going to be in the neighborhood of 2 AT&T stadiums. It will take probably 10 minutes to walk from end to end, despite what Ron just said about the vertical stack. The continuous exhibit hall level is about a third of a mile long. Yet, the area where we're touching the ground and touching the street is more or less 10% of the built area of the project, right? So it's kind of incumbent on us to make the most of those experiences. The other thing that we've been saying throughout this project is giving the architects a rough time here, but this is an architecture project, or this is a mobility and urban design project masquerading as an architecture project. I'm in the minority perhaps, but there are just so many things going on here. I'll probably have a hard time actually with it all. We have the Union Pacific Railroad moving through the site. We're having to retain existing slab to be able to transit across that to the service and loading that's happening above there. The dock itself has space for about 50 tractor trailers, and that's just up here. So just and then we have, of course, the strong man the guardrail. The project, we have a station within the building itself. We have several surface streets right now where we are currently being able to take the cap off of the building, essentially, and reconnect that. We'll get into each of these streets more in turn, but there's so many factors around the edges of the building that are.
Hello, Terry Arborman. I'm landscape architect locally. So just kind of big picture. You can see this, I think.
Hold on here.
Yeah. So, Lamar Street here, Ceremonial Street here, which sort of connects towards City Hall, but eventually it all the way to City Hall. The Lamar Streetscape, just for clarity, is not part of this project. It's going to be a part of some future project because there's a lot of different buckets of money and it's got a lot of coordination in the future. Big picture, we have, I ended it up myself, I'm on only 65,000 square feet of public plaza. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail. There's a continuous walkway along the curve of the building at the ground plane. And currently we are studying, I don't know that this is real yet, but a programmable green space that we hesitate to call park, that park, because it's really, you know, a quarter to 20% of any of that parks that we have in the rest of that city, so we don't try to claim something large, but it does make a significant, I think it's 100 feet by 300 feet long green connection over to the Cedars neighborhood. We're currently just starting and studying this, and this is kind of contingent upon, I guess, TxDOT and private funding, which is not in place yet. But the goal is to make a major pedestrian connection across here and actually take the walkway that's underneath the building and extend it right up to this intersection and to be determined some scope there to play around this. On the south, generally the south side of the project, on the south side of the Union Pacific Railroad, this is mostly service and docks. And there's a huge marshalling yard here, which has thousands of trucks and what have you. A fire station that's getting built by the city that is in the process, and Ron will tell you about that because it's not far enough along yet. And then there's a large amount of green space that's been kind of preserved on this edge. Currently, the scope of this is not in the base project, but will be in a different bucket of money again. And our intent is to have some stormwater reclamation in this area and a pretty nice growth of trees that would sort of add some green space. Yeah. So at a bigger scale, and this is 1 to 20, bars along here, there's a series of light fixtures that we are proposing to the city, even though it's not in our scope to sort of upgrade a district light fixture. We're working with the development, make installations and submit them to the city for approval. That would be an upgrade from what the city standard is. The plaza is, you know, a large scale space of a fire lane. It runs about 30 feet-ish out from the building, and it also provides window washing. So we have a series of seawall planters that are kind of through here, and a lot of perforation for a lot of green space. Basically took the plan and basically took the circulation paths. We had, like, let's just say, a whole green space there, and then cut the circulation through it, and we're using every bit of it as green that's left. And it has a seawall along the facade about 30 feet out that people can collect. These two planters are a little bit depressed, but there's about a 20,000 half-acre worth of rain garden and stormwater collection in the front of the building, with the boardwalk that goes along that, and some pavilions that can become a little bit more of an immersive landscape to the public, which would be both the convention visitors and people that just want to stroll along the street. Obviously, there'll be good lighting for all this, and I think the whole idea is to create a safe environment that people feel good about, and potentially restaurants on the 2 corners.
Yeah, when we did a lot of the community meetings, this is the kind of thing, space that they could feel safe, that was sheltered, had a place of respite. And this is something that's a civic area that we don't have quite yet today. It's a place to get to gas.
None of it's over structure, so we'll be able to actually make the speech
I'd like to introduce us to the mobility system. Since Terry was just outside the building, I think I'll start outside as well. And just convey some of the broader vision that we have. As Ron mentioned, our project is the convention center, but we want to really just think with care and mindfully about how it integrates with that district. So we have recommendations for this here. We want to support that human-centered design that we mentioned earlier, with moments of interest, with ground floor activation, really make this a vibrant place where people want to come to and stay. And in support of that, we're we're recommending upgrades to pedestrian and cycling infrastructure throughout the district. For a couple of reasons: to strengthen access within the district between big nodes like Union Station, future as well as the convention center itself, high-speed rail, that programmable green space, dark light rail, and strengthen connections with neighboring communities. So I'll just go through a few of those things. So you'll notice a lot of green lines. They generally indicate recommended upgrades to infrastructure. So it's about 5 roadways here where there would be upgrades to the Dallas bicycle plan with visually or physically separated bike lanes on say MAR, ceremonial for the roadways, strengthening connections. Again, if there's future developments and some of these parcels, enabling easy access throughout the district to some of the major nodes that people want to get to and from. Also, part of the vision here is really to strengthen connectivity, right, to neighboring communities. So along Mark Street, we're recommending not only upgrades to pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, but a design that will accommodate a future extension of Dallas streetcar. So that all of that can be extended in the future directly south into the Cedars and strengthen that north-south connections. Also, as you know, there's already a greenway planned by the city along the Houston Viaduct. So we are recommending and designing here a new connection from that greenway along Hotel Street and into the convention center itself, enabling seamless connections by foot and bicycle from the Oak Farms to Oak neighborhoods, straight into the convention center, accessing dark light rail here, accessing bicycle facilities, convention center itself, and then onto the other side, that programmable green space, out in the east, whatever it may become in the future. So again, strengthening that connection. And then finally, within the district here, we're recommending an extension of Ceremonial Drive directly west to provide east-west connectivity. There's not a lot of it in the district now, so that'll be a really important one. Also enabling future developments on some of these parcels that are not well connected today. So as we step inside the convention center, now this is more functional, but we want to ensure that things work really seamlessly and easily for people. So the main feature here is a central mobility hub. So here's the main lobby that I introduced earlier. So this here is the central mobility hub right here, where basically all of the most efficient nodes would come together. As you exit the lobby on the back side into the mobility hub, you'll be able to not only access things, but see with your eyes the full menu of options that you have for access and egress to the convention center. So your ride mail, pickup, drop off, your hotel shuttles, your coach buses, all will be accessible from this one location. Dark light rail will be also very nearby with seamless access and dark buses as well, with parking just beyond that. Now that contrasts with the current convention center. If you think about it, in the current building, you get your Ubers and Lyfts in one place, your coach buses and hotel shuttles somewhere else. Parking's in the third place. The dark light rail is under the building, and it can be very difficult really to access all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll take a pass through each one of these streets in turn, but we'll start out front at Lamar. And as Clayton mentioned, we're really proposing a very comprehensive street section here. Very generous public realm. The first one is kind of looking from here north of the DART station, essentially. And so we have, the circulation and big plaza space here, sort of a flex area, pick up and drop off lane, travel lanes that can be future streetcar and travel lanes as well. And then opposite side of the street, we have a two-way bike facility going both directions. And then opposite the project, future development by others, hoping for a very generous public realm as well.
So it's been a beautiful Lamar, and I won't belabor this, but I think architecturally, the most important thing here to look at is it's going to have a presence, but the intention is that it's not imposing. So it does step back, it does feel like it's recessive in a way that allows people to sort of, be seen, occupy the building, at least on the Lamar side. It's really important. Again, the building does not have a back side, and this one is the most civic, public, and future forward-looking side of the building. In terms of the arcs, you can see there have been some pretty deliberate ideas about keeping one of the long parks really connecting from north to south, so there's a literal idea of connectivity. And then it's really the essence of Dallas, of being restless, of being entrepreneurial, having a bit of a dynamism to it, is represented with all of these places that each orient slightly in different directions to capture the best views of down towards the Cedars or towards the skyline. So they all kind of peek out and create signature spaces from inside as much as they create sort of a very clear identity on from the outside.
This was actually a personal favorite of mine. It's kind of a little bit of the forgotten part of the building, what people call the backside, but it's a really important one. Hotel Street in its current configuration, it's basically a sea pavement, and this area will have to remain a very functional and utilitarian area. But we're really looking to green it up in the extent possible, and also create a really important connection. There's a slide in your pamphlet that shows future development. I think you're on it right there. But Hotel Street actually takes on a great significance in the future, and we thought it's very important to ensure that there's, so it mirrors the Union Pacific Railroad. And so in the future, there's development in your Regency Tower, development in the Cedars. This would be a very important connection point to make as those developments move forward. And so what we're doing here is creating opportunity for connectivity within the district, greening on either side of the street, taking this very utilitarian street and making it a more beautiful place. Yeah. Continue back around to, as Clayton mentioned, really big opportunity today to take what's ceremonial drop, which you could say is maybe not as ceremonious as it could be, and creating a true district connector here. Adjacent to the convention center here, we have, again, a pretty generous public realm, some opportunity for tucking around the other side of the building, maybe from that very public plaza, having a little bit more quiet seating areas, hopefully spilling out maybe some cafe seating in that area as well, but trying to create, and again, that complete street idea with the two-way all the way that connects under and through the building.
We're going to wrap with 3 quick boards that show what it looks like in the ground level, but how that activation is starting to occur. Now, this is still in design, so this is not necessarily final, but again, what you see is that 30-foot space. It's really generous, and then the abundant amount of lateral connection from curb over to storefront. So it gives you a chance to be out from under the building, but also be under a shade there. So that's a pretty interesting space. As Terry mentioned earlier, you've got that programmable outdoor green space that goes over the Canyon project. And we have a view right here. When you sort of look from the south towards this project, you'll almost not even know that you're over a highway. So those who come after it's built, kind of like Clyde Warren, you won't recognize that there's actually a highway to meet you. So this is again under development, but the fact that you've got a generous amount of park space that goes under the building, and that's more community space under there. The idea is that every edge has been pulled in to the extent possible to really draw that public into the site and not necessarily keep them away. And so you can see here this park again, really just very conducive to that movement. Dark line will happen here, and you start to see the projecting elements. So you still have a hint that there's meeting rooms and ballroom beyond. And backing out one step further, now you're looking over that outdoor program green space. Today, that would be a road with a highway on the other side, but what we see here is something that really settles into the landscape. A really simple incision here. Most of these exhibition halls will typically want daylight. We were able to talk to the users about daylight. They found benefit, but it's also a window to and from the Cedars. So this does become something that does recognize that there's something out there. And so there's a bit of reciprocity there. Union Tower peaks over the edge, and so I think that's sort of that activity built up here that is talking about the park space. That's the short version.
Okay. And I appreciate that. It's good to hear. I don't know if there's anybody here who hasn't been looking at this as a area handed out. It's such a big and important project. Very good. We're going to move into our typical process here. We're going to go down the panel one at a time for questions, so everybody understands what we're dealing with here before getting comments back and the things like, I'm gonna take executive privilege again and ask one sort of height question. And that is, it's a comment, we know, I think I know the answer, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. We, oftentimes get, plans, brought to us that are highly developed at the horizontal plane, as this one, I think, very clearly is. But the wind rendering techniques nowadays, also allow the vertical plane. Sometimes we get comments that on the architecture, no, this is just a placeholder. We really haven't gotten into the architecture yet. And this one is important for me to know, where are you in the process with the architecture? Do you expect it to look like that, or is that a placeholder?
We do expect to look like this. Yeah, I mean, there's be some subtle refinements for sure, but as we get mock-ups and everything else, but we are, on budget. We have material selected, it's largely in the talent of the glass screen. What I didn't talk about was also bird safety. So anytime you see glass, there is bird safety.
And you're right, those, we may not have time for those weeks, that we would be interested in. Oh, that also, but we don't want to comment on something that's not real, to begin with, that's happening. Okay, that said, then we'll start with, questions, and this time we'll start from the right end of it. Maria, would you like to lead us off with any questions you might have?
Yeah, something that you could talk a little bit more about, it's on the overall plan, there's a pinch point right here where Lamar bends, in terms of the width of the walkway, do we have bicycle path on our side? Because I think I briefly heard somebody talk about Lamar having a bike path, but it's on the other side of the street, which you guys don't control. So I was hoping we could talk a little bit more about that pinch point and making sure that it doesn't feel like a bottleneck. I think the rendering shows something really nice, but I'm not sure that they're showing exactly where that pinch point is, and so just wanted your know.
Yeah, good question. We're just trying to find out the collateral here.
Yeah. Our street. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, some of the rationale, later you can jump in here if you. Yeah, sorry. So we went through several iterations of this street section to arrive at where we did today. Part of the reason for the two-way bike lane on the opposite side of the project is really because there's just so much going on in this curve here, both in terms of, we continue to iterate with this, working on the repair amendments, but there's a lot of demand for curb space on this side of the project. In terms of these kind of flex lanes right here, we thought it was kind of inappropriate to have cycle and just less safe to have cycle zones on the side of the project. Yeah.
Well, clearly it would be a more peaceful experience for cyclists on the other side of the street, away from the driveways. But I just wanted to reaffirm your point. I think we recognize that same challenge at this point. It's both an opportunity for a very vibrant, almost iconic point in the whole project where you would have dark light rail and streetcar and views of downtown pedestrians. And there's a lot to fit in that small space at that elbow. So we are very much focused on trying to design that to accommodate just proper amount of space for pedestrians.
How wide is that walkway right now, and what is preventing you from widening it? Is there something on the west side of Lamar that is, I see a dart station kind of roasted into one of those exhibits. I'm just wondering what is getting you to say this is the right way, so that we can understand that.
Do you know what that is at the moment? It varies, actually. We have one that shows it well as it kind of gets down to that point, but that's certainly, yeah, I mean, I think at its narrowest, it should, in this area, it gets to about 20 feet at the moment, so.
Could you just say?
Yeah. It'd be fine if you wanted to lean them, we're used to. Okay. Yeah, that's what we, well.
Yeah.
If you hold it up that way, it's great. If you need to lay it down up here, sure. Okay.
So yeah, I think we're discussing kind of the growth of DART and just the mobility up here. We've certainly made sure to provide a very generous landing zone here. One of the big goals of this is looking at some other precedents where these buildings really have to accept a lot of
different, modes of, vehicles entering. We've looked at other ones that had, light rail moving through them as well. We really wanted to avoid having a wide road, and that's some of the examples we looked at. Even the existing condition today, to cross Memorial under the building at Lamar, it's, with the slip lanes that are there, it's about 250 feet to get from one corner to the other. We wanted to avoid that as much as possible. But part of what is really nice too about having the dark platform in this area, it kind of gives you two different landing paths right there. And we also really looked at trying to eliminate traffic. We have only entering traffic in this area. So it's just 2 lanes there inbound.
And to your question, Maria, there may be an opportunity to take this orange line and adjust it slightly. All right, that's variable. There's certain depths we're working with in other column structures. But this is the one place where maybe it's the smallest, but in terms of scale, it's 20 to 25 feet. So it's pretty generous in like real time dimensions, because the overhead's about 30 feet. So it's almost as wide as it is tall, which is pretty deep. But that is the one place where we have some fungibility with that line. That's not locked in. The infrastructure set, we couldn't move the curb line, and then everything else goes from there. Yeah.
And then that dark station, just about that, with that said, do you guys have flexibility?
It's in the same location. They want to keep it where it is. But the nice thing about this is by pulling the building back and taking it beyond the curb of Lamar, you daylight the station. So when you arrive, you're not necessarily in a camera anymore. You're at least going to have some visibility. We want this to be in play, be part of the action. So we sort of like that you can see, the intention with the orange line, there's another one over here, is that there are things that do pull you across and you don't feel like you're going to a dead end. You always see that there's some activity in the light happening at these edges. And then you wait for the train to pass. And so, but this is the space where everything's happening. Even the architecture, everything stacks up above this zone to almost accentuate the idea that everything's happening here. That's where all the energy is. But it does signal like that gateway moment. We're hoping that really does become a future development, but gateway moment. You come off the dark, and then you go on to more buildings.
And then the activation, the future activating uses are you thinking that's restaurant, retail?
That's still being discussed. Yeah, it's all those are options for sure. It's really about what does the community need, what's going to service, because these are not associated with the convention itself, convention center. There's some space in purple on one of these plans that shows it that's internalized, mostly devoted, dedicated to the convention function. These are not. So these will always, whatever is the market needs. And again, the idea that this is not colored in because there's no planting under the building, but this green space, where we draw a line, this is all contiguous. So you're out in the green space, you're undercover here. There could be support functions out there. That's really the nice thing about this, is that it's going to be very, very, again, human scale and inviting, not necessarily alienating.
And then I understand the bike reason, and I agree with it, not mixing it up with a bunch of pedestrians on which side. How much control do you have on that side of the car?
We're setting a design intent at this point. Yeah, go ahead.
The Dallas bike plan already includes visually protected bike lanes on Lamar. And so we're simply suggesting to make it physically protected, which is probably an extra 2 feet or so, some mountable curb or bollards. So we think it's consistent with the city's plans and probably compatible with how the city would want it. Well, we know, speaking with the transportation department, it's compatible with their interests. So we're hopeful that that vision will carry through.
Thank you. I'm still stuck on the DART station a little bit, so I'm having trouble visualizing. It is literally packed, but we said daylit, and we also said gateway. Can you help me understand a little bit more the vision for the treatments?
It's great. You're familiar with Lamar Street today, and it is a cavern, right?
Yeah.
So all of that is coming away. And the front of the building, obviously, will be on the near side of Lamar. So in the mornings, literally, sunlight will be able to reach the edge of the platform.
Yeah, because if we're showing this is actually vertical runs. Yeah. But it's the idea that the train stops right here. So you are right at the cusp of that edge there. So yeah, you have, again, it's really from being in a tunnel today to being under something that is sheltered but still open. Like you're the train's stopping right there in front of that space. That's how we're just imagining that. When we say gateway, the idea is just that if you were to arrive here, you should have choices. You should be coming to this station, not just for convention. You should be in the future coming here to go to everything else around the area. So we're hoping that's the case. For us, it's not necessarily in our scope to find where that could go. That's been fixed in terms of its location. We're pulling it back and holding these elements back, things we do have control of, to give you as much visibility as possible. And, intuitive wayfinding is part of it. So the notion that you come off the train, you're not lost where you go. Because today you come off, you're not sure, you're kind of maybe a little nervous to get off. But you get off the train right there, you're gonna have a very good idea of which way to go. You're gonna have an easy choice that brings you right over to the Great Hall, or it's gonna take you out to the, again, get off here and then walk down here, go for a coffee that way and keep going, so.
And it's just open air, not convention space, right? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But it's covered, so it's open on the.
Yeah, this heavy line, I mean, in reality would be dashed, but that heavy line is the limits of the building above, again, it's 30 feet high.
Yeah.
It's not kind of doing ground, so all of this is all in there.
Thank you, that's all. The other question I had was, I appreciated you listing out some of the sustainability aspects of the more part of how the building functions. Wondering if there are any other invisible low carbon design strategies, specifically embodied carbon, that are making it into the building?
Yeah, there's a lot. Matt, you want to talk about that? There's a lot of those.
One thing that's not readily available from any of these renderings is we are reusing part of the hall left slab. So there is a reuse of some existing structure that is a benefit and the carbon savings stored in that. We are trying to specify low mix concrete and high recycled content for steel. So those are sort of invisible.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, just from a sustainability standpoint, we're using geothermal, heat cooling and all the concrete piers will have geothermal pipes running through them to help make it more efficient from the energy standpoint.
Perfect. Okay.
In terms of embodied, there's also not a new large parking garage, right? We're expecting it will be a shared district parking program with some on-site and then a lot off-site as well. So that also reduces the
That's
embodied
good to
carbon.
know. Thank you. I have not heard about that parking, parking garage. Okay. I think those are my questions for now.
Rod,
Look at that writing on this page.
I try to make notes, you guys talk so fast, and this one's so complicated.
Yeah.
I'd say you're going back to the 19th century, you're not doing the 20th century.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, we're making a lot of stuff, and we've been trying to do it for a long time. With the railroads and, I sympathize. I guess my questions are in general, has the coordination meetings gone well? You mentioned Darla and Exide and all your partners that are influencing all this is, and are those pretty?
They did resolve, we knew, we had to find out early on what was really, again, something that could be adjusted and when things were fixed. That was a big part of it. So we had to just get our edge map drawn. So okay, these are fixed. We did ask questions with Dara. We understood their pressure points, and so we knew what we had to keep. So
Right.
I think what we said was, okay, let's understand where opportunities are and let's fix it. I mean,
What's the height to the bottom of the structure today?
let's stay.
Over the illustration.
I believe it's 24 feet. I think it's 24. It does vary a bit because it's like a slope. The pinch point there along the bar is 24 feet.
Yeah, okay. Have you done any analysis, because I agree with you, not more with mobility or design. I'm a landscape architect, so I'll leave the architecture to the experts, but the arrival sequence, you're trying to blend it. You're gonna have, it's a major destination. You can say, locally, regional, state, national, worldwide. But then you're blending teacher, residents, Falsey, not Victory, you've been here a training length of time, Victory was not what it is today, right? So that's a very long, so I can see the context, evolving into that. So have you done, I see the diagrams, but have you done an analysis of sort of that broader arrival sequence, like coming into the country, or you're trying to walk to work in some future? I see that. How has it helped?
Yeah. We actually, about a year ago, really went through an exercise of identifying personas specifically from a mobility perspective to think about how would you arrive, just as you're saying, somebody who's from out of the country. And there are so many different ways to actually to get here.
one of the things that I think is, it goes to the shared parking concept as well, is that we're really hoping that a lot of the people are staying in the district, in downtown. And they're riding on foot. You know, the mobility hub is very substantial, but it still cannot accommodate, no mode can accommodate everybody who is coming and going here. So we're really hoping to rely on transit on foot. And so that's one of the reasons why streets have become such a high priority for us in this project.
Yeah. One of the, just stated that one of the desires is to have another 4,000 hotel rooms associated with the convention center, which would have its own parking and its relationship there. So a lot of those people, you know, we're not competing east of Lamar, but our goal is to get a bridge over Lamar connecting from that new development with the hotels.
Yeah, they have their own, on the center. So just another question, it's just in your analysis, you know, I see the diagrams of streets like Jefferson, I've got questions about how that all works. Is that fully baked? I see it looks like that's running into Houston. Are you still working through those?
Yeah, we're still working through those.
And then Memorial doesn't go through. Am I reading that right?
That is correct, yes. So we'll start with Memorial.
Yes.
Memorial is a short street in the whole network, but not well used to begin with. So on the, that is lucky. So Memorial from the planned south side will provide a new access point into the convention center. Well, I guess it exists today, but yeah. So it'll be designed so that half of it will be converted into that greenway that we discussed earlier, and the other half still for traffic. So that'll be an access point. We'll also have what is currently Memorial on the other side, being another access point. But we will not invite traffic to come through the convention center because we wanted to really enable a much more human-centered experience here that is safe and calm and without a lot of pollution. So you can see from the south here, Memorial winds up into the mobility hub. And from the north here, the driveway does the same thing. Now in terms of Jefferson, just to take, to illustrate the challenge, right? Jefferson is here in existing condition. It physically intersects the envelope of where we're designing the building. So we have to do something. And so we're working through a number of design options right now with the city and with council people just to understand better what is we're looking at so many options. We're looking for feedback now. What is the option that now responds best?
Yeah.
And then the city will move forward. So there are options to to take it on the current here, to make an S-curve, take it underground, use everything's on.
Yeah, your connection to Cedar to Social Mall, and that connection also across the river.
Yes.
Works, but I think that's all my questions.
Great.
Thank you.
I guess I'll continue. So I was looking at this and
Yeah, I got one.
this intersection right here, I know it's open air, but it's probably dark and it seems like there would be accidents every day. And I presume would be putting my thought here. So I was wondering, is this connection actually necessary, or have there been conversation about, just using this main street and making that connection to the south through Houston and Ceremonial, and, not trying to force this way through to Memorial Drive?
So we want to do both, and I want to clarify, this is not an intersection. It's a great question. There's a grade difference here of about 20 feet. So, there's an underpass here that exists, and then vehicles would come up and loop around. That's the whole point of the loop, is to get up to grade and then cross. The greenway would stay under that. This is an existing bridge that DART uses. So the greenway would stay under this and then come up on the other side.
And so part of this also is we're reusing an existing street we're just overbuilt for what it would be here. So essentially half of that is
it would be repurposed as some infrastructure. So, it's not a cost of doing it elsewhere, it's just, we thought it was super necessary to add that here.
And are there, lighting designs that are gonna?
Still being worked on for sure, that's the major consideration, is just in wayfinding and where we put the, said, last year, all the light, are there ways to help use light to help guide you through it, and just safety is security is key. So that's under development, that is a paramount issue. You're right, Lee, I mean, it's a both and situation, we don't want to preclude the shortcut potential here, as hotels does make it more active if pricing rail comes along, and there's other things happening further down the line that might warrant, movement, and this, really wants to be a barrier, we want to use as much velocity along the line as possible, and it's limited, but, at least ensure we did create more of those walls that are there today.
And then
I was just gonna add to that, in terms of the first step, we thought about the drivers, the trucks who would be on lobby waiting for marshalling, they may be waiting for their turn to load for hours, what are those folks doing, are they able to walk to the other side, through the building to the district, instead of having to cable a car and get these things.
I want to correct the fact, this is more about like a 15-foot difference. But the rest of it is going after. Well, I did say that.
and then my other question, was about the building in general. And what other, how did you come to this materiality? When you think about how this building could be unique.
Well, we really thought, there are two things. One is really the functional constructability, weight of it all. So we talked a lot about light as it relates to lightness and true daylight. And so the idea of the shaping, the fact that the metal itself can have enough articulation, shadows. That's really cool. This one's good. Just the sense that there was enough clarity in likeness that the shaping itself, and again, the play of light is going to be more paramount than anything. And it did deal with the fact that there's a lot happening with building up every feet in the sky. And so the buildings keep it feeling like it's got rhythms that again have sort of this identity per level. So each level is slightly different than the others. So it does become lighter and lighter, so a more transparency. And that was it. It was really about casting views, having the angular sense of movement, and letting it feel non-static. I think that's one thing we wanted to get. We could have made this really imposing and really blocky. We felt that the lightness was the real characteristic that we really rally around versus something where the material was like around.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones for me. One is bigger question. Where are we in the design process here? Is this still schematic design? There's quite a bit left to do. That's what we're talking about. The other question I have is, where's the streetcar? I haven't seen it referred to, but it would be part of the mobility. It's like it runs under your building, but I don't see it down.
Future streetcar has been accommodated with the Warren Street center platform.
Future, the existing one. We're moving
Right, the existing streetcar terminates just off of Union Station now, and so the city.
But doesn't that go through
the city is looking at an extension of that by Young, Wood, Lamar, and this is where we go.
Give me a plan. What I'm asking is, I guess that there. Where does the existing streetcar track lie this place? So it doesn't come right across. Okay, and how is that accommodated in your mobility planning? Is it accommodated in your mobility?
The streetcar would stay where it is.
Right.
And come down to grade near Union Station.
Okay.
So the place it would connect to the convention center is at a future station on the front side.
So there's no accommodation. There's no special stop or anything. It's not really part of the mobility of the plan for this design here until somebody else brings it all the way back around.
Yeah.
That's an existing, expensive thing. and you're taking, you're adding a half a mile to it before you can get on it. Is there no opportunity to, it just seems like it's a missed opportunity, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations around that, but I believe the idea, because I'm not speaking for the city, it's some level here. That part, we actually gather people from the south that would bring you back to the city. So you have South Avenue Station, and that's your junction, you go back over west. So yes, you go west over the Trinity, you have to sort of go around the convention center.
I understand, but it's there today.
That's the
And when you build this, it will be there, and that will probably not.
Right.
And so I'm just looking for what we were doing.
Yeah, we're just saying.
And it's not like nothing.
I suppose if there were, I think it's a very interesting point. If there were a connection, a new one, I suppose you'd want to consider right here around Ceremonial, and people would drop down and be coming to the lobby that way, right?
Yes. Slide aside, I would say this huge project, I know we've got all kinds of questions. We would love a briefing just on that ground floor and mobility center, because there's no way I'm sorting all this out. and you are, everybody's bringing up a great number of important interactions and things, and obviously your designs are not far enough along that we can critique them either. You have to tell us there's a 15-foot grade difference in some of these intersections. That makes all the difference in the intersection. So if, please consider, if we need to get some of these individual components brought up, we would love to see, we could do more help over, I think, a multi-section review. So I'm very, those are my questions. Yes.
Oh, I'm just going to have a few just to get me started. What makes the greenway green?
Well, in addition to being a green line on the map, it is a place for pedestrians and cyclists, and so it's a
But it's
multi-purpose
ambitious, right? You think it hasn't got grass?
Well, it can't.
No, I mean, it's wasn't meant to be difficult question. I just wanted to-
Underneath the building, it can't,
But
right?
it's like a paved route, or it's just a word for a path, or?
Yeah, it's a paved route for pedestrians and cyclists, and in the outdoor sections, you could have actual greenery.
Could you, so that was one, the other question I had is, could you show me on the ground floor plan of the big building? Well, no, the lobby, the great stuff. That's one of the other. Thank you. I'm not very aware of the doors are.
Always a question. This vestibule screen right here, so you get, the entries right along that edge. And then you have major entry right just off screen here now. There's no really So you have two primary entries and some of the shortcuts off to the side. But when you're having a show, this area and this area is open. You can make both sides. There would likely be some sort of quiet computer over here, kind of program that goes there over time.
That's where you put it.
Yeah, some of these are still up, but maybe exactly this point is you get your shelter. You don't want to, I mean, it's colored bright, so maybe it should, but the idea of this all having a sort of natural feel. And again, goes from planted, open to the sky, to outdoor shielded and sheltered from the sun. It's more continuous space, but yeah, those are the primary entries. So again, it sets up this entry so that you're sort of coming in from the diagonal, like Terry was talking about. You cut through here, or you cross the mid-block, which is future development, or you come back over here, and you have this sort of.
How do you do it on this?
Yeah, it's minimal
over here. Yeah, I think our team is very interested in introducing doors here as a way to activate the space and also shorten the connection to Union Station and other destinations. And the challenge here, this is a restaurant area, and depending on the operator, they may or may not want to have that accessible from the backside versus through the secure lobby. So that is a design question that we're considering.
Another question, bicycles, pathways, if you come by bike to attend, what's the route to you enter?
So the concept here is we haven't designed and located the bike parking yet, but the concept is that we want to have it distributed throughout the site, because we know people will park bikes as conveniently as they can. They're not going to go far out of their way to a bike parking space. So first and foremost is in the street furniture zone next to the main roadway, which would be bike parking. We don't like to introduce bike parking key nodes on site. So for example, this space over here could be a really interesting one. Also for clear cuts, so they're collapsed. So this is that 100% really interesting vibrant node in the whole center. And also near the dark light rail station, we're considering the possibility for secure bike. Someone wants to come here, commute, store for the day, in a safe way, hop on the dog, they can do that as well. And likewise in other parts of the site, we want to just be able to provide for places closed.
And Clayton, probably also worth mentioning, there's specific bike parking on Lot E for employees, so not just convention goers, but also people who will be working here, dedicated places for them.
And so we're, the ratio that's suggested by zoning would be no fewer than 122 spaces. And so we think that's the minimum and make a flexible program that can grow.
There are little white boxes with dotted lines around them in the middle of the plaza.
This is probably like away from sort of.
I just wondered what this, is that seating or is that?
That's sitting there, I think those are just left over from showing it, I think those are meant to be sort of canopy structures. This is still undesigned in terms of the dimension, but those are key areas with artificial shading versus the natural shading.
And then could you quickly say a little bit more about roofs? I know at the very beginning you said that maybe eventually we'll take, but for the moment.
The roofs, well, the roofs, what I said about the future was more of the photovoltaics, so they're PV ready, so the other spaces are actually occupiable. You can find the other one, let's look at this one here. This is, yeah. Yeah, well, this one shows you essentially where the outdoor spaces are in the one. So you've got about 25,000 here, 15,000 there, and then another 10,000 out there. The rest of it's not accessible, but it's ready. This is where the EVs could be clustered here, depending on orientation and
I just point out, they keep saying future because it's going to be a third party vendor. It's not necessarily in the construction dollar, so it'll be part of the central plant third party who pulls everything together. We're designing it, but financing's kind of different. So.
Okay. Well, we're about the fact we like the last time we turn around and start making comments. And my comment to everyone is, it's huge. I'd love to see this broken down some. With minded time, if we're only 12 minutes away from 11 o'clock, many of us come pumpkin maybe that time. So, who wants to start?
I'll probably start doing the same comments. We never really introduced ourselves. I'm not necessarily I run the sustainability and development program at SMU, and but I'm an architect, so mixed point of view on things. But I generally jump into the sustainability stuff. But as an academic, I go to a lot of conferences, so I've got kind of conference-focused things to discuss. I'm really interested in the doors in part because I think that this plaza is a real opportunity, and I think at the moment it still looks to me like it's too much thought of as a passageway from the city into the convention centre, and I think that there's an ability to turn that plaza into much more of an amenity or a conference space and an active we're going to the waterfront beautiful plaza at the San Diego Conference Center, which is full of basically kiosks and movable coffee carts and food trucks, and it's as active as like Warren. And it's a prime conference space, because everyone knows you go to network, you really go to hang out in those dark spaces. And the more conferences you've been to, the fewer time you spend in the conference hall. So I think that that plaza could become the most important selling point for the conference users, because everyone can do their networking out there. If there were more things going on and less space that was just paving. So my suggestion as you develop it is, please turn those dotted lines not just into shade, but into actual usable retail that could be rented and more seats. Every conference user who's a woman has had to go with their kid to a conference. Please can there be some play areas out there, and all that sort of useful stuff. We spend a lot of time in that space. My comment about doors is the same thing, that when you've got to get from a conference down to the playground with the kids for 10 minutes, how to be able to get back, the more permeable that is, the more usable it is. And generally, conference spaces, I understand, don't necessarily think about those features.
Great points, I would say, we also thinking that way about ceremony, I know a lot of this, probably needs to, but just we can follow it off ceremony and make it that space. And allow food trucks and doing all the things you talked about, in addition to that, not to negate that this doesn't need evolution, but.
I mean, I love that it's so big, there's a huge opportunity to do lots of things there, but I think at the moment there's way too much paving, or at least paving the budget for walking through. It's actually going to need a very big space to just quickly get back into the conference and be around it.
Yeah, we kept pushing to get more and more green, I agree, I think it's that fine balance that we're talking about.
The second thing that I wanted to bring up is, you said already with bicycles, you're obviously on the same wavelength, people who come with bicycles are not going to stay on the other side of the road, just because that's where the bike lanes are, they want to be at the conference. So that question that Maria had about there be a little bit of bike lane on this side, otherwise people likely will be cycling through the pedestrians in that first. And we probably will anyway, but the bike one, I wanted to make the same comment about where the dart connects with this plaza, and I think that Maria was bringing it up, and I think it's such a great opportunity because it's so boring when you're hanging out at the dart station and they are delayed by 20 minutes and it's nowhere to go. So it would be really good to extend that activation right quickly.
Firmly agree with that.
Stores, activation conference outside. Roofs, my question about roofs is that I think all of those outdoor is facing upstairs roof terraces are going to be, but they're going to be really hot. So I always would have to put trees up there, but we just can't seem to think about the.
Yeah, we have done solar studies, so there is going to be early morning is when it gets hit the most, but it does start to self-shade into its orientation, we could probably provide some of those solar maps to show.
Yeah, so if
I mean, it'll be, you're right, in Texas, it would be hot even without the sun.
Yeah.
So you also done some wind studies that you catch some of those pieces, so that it won't be.
But maybe there's an opportunity to do some nice sunshading things and all that.
I'm gonna-
Also not shades, did you put
I'm going to interpret quick. The main thing is we get our panel's comments to you. A response is not required when we make these comments unless we've got something wrong. Not wishing to cut this off the conversation, excellent. I don't have any problem with it. But we'll only be the two people talking here short ahead, so we want to make sure that everybody, already lost where we're going, make sure everybody has a chance to speak. So I'm not cutting you off. I just, you say this, they say something else. Let's just get comments out so that we get them recorded and they can understand.
So my last comment is about the roofs that are not accessible. I'm excited about both the things, of course, but actually I think it's an amazing opportunity with green roofs. And green roofs ought to be on every single warehouse in Dallas. Big fan of more modern green roofs. I think that this huge roof up here could be a real help to the heat island effect of the city if it was a lightweight green roof.
Okay, thank you. Second.
Sure. Is there anybody else?
No, let's just go down the road. We just go right ahead.
Okay, I was going to piggyback on your comment about the entry plaza. The convention centers are long, so it's amazing that there's one pedestrian cycling path that can go through it. So that's amazing that it can go through. I think not being able to activate the main lobby when there's not an event going on, that's where the opportunity of having programmable space and the plaza would be super valuable. And making it like a neighborhood park for people that are living there. So that there's not this connotation of this convention center, if there's no event going on, then there's no people that go there. So yeah, I think that's the only comment I have in terms of potentially making those projects better served.
right in. I'll do this very quick. I've made some notes, or made a comment on all my notes, but that's fine. I'm tracking what you're saying, you know. The things that I'll comment on are more challenges to you. And plus, we're not trying to redesign things and create more grief for you. But you know, when I look, I'll stay focused on the mobility hub. I think that is an incredible opportunity, a very rare opportunity for us. And I don't know another place in this region like it. You don't really have a well field because you don't have dark right there. You know, DFW maybe, but that's spread out and the scale's different. So I would say, you know, that mobility hub, you said mobility in urban design project masquerading as an architectural project. You know, there's a lot of truth in that, right? I mean, this building is sitting on top of something that's super important. And today, I think the challenge is, today that's the place no one wants to be. I've taken Cub Scouts, I've taken kids to Comic-Con, and that is the place you get in and you get out quickly. And I walked through that Portal Memorial, and that's a major challenge point. It's that. So I would say, thinking about it more as a central station and a gateway to Dallas. I mean, there's a chance you get on a plane, fly to DFW. Your first moment of experience in Dallas is when you walk off the train. You know, I think we could spend hours, but I think having a convention space would be great. Kind of like the Skylink, the DFW, you get off the train, there's a gap, but you have sliding doors, you're walking out those escalators up to your space above. You know, I think about it, it's like, how do we make that your wow moment that's inspirational with awe, you know, opposed to today, you know, trains like this. You know, I made a lot of notes. I'm happy to provide a lot of these. I have this doodling thing as a way to open up, so that it's absolutely the opposite of it. That can open the floor up, let sunlight in. You know, so it doesn't feel like you're in a basement or you're underneath. I think that's, not saying you're doing that. We don't have enough yet. I think underneath there, you're not there yet to be able to show us this is what that experience is going to be like. I won't get into all the streets. I think even the street connections, as strong as they are today, but better. Cutting off streets really makes me nervous, especially connections to neighborhoods. And if you think about this in 20 years, I go back to Victory, other parts of the city that evolved tremendously. I think 20 years ahead, we're going to want those connections. So we're going to want those connections to the seniors to be really strong and safe. Let's see something in the 10 minutes here. Josh, not memory. But those are really my comments. We could spend a day just on the mobility hub or 2 days, but I think it's more of a challenge. How do you make it a place that people want to be and it's more inspiring opposed to, you know, I'm not sure raising it 5 to 6 feet up higher is going to get us there. That's my concern.
Yeah, and similarly, I love Norm's idea that maybe we could have just a mobility discussion and then perhaps some more detailed renderings of like the treatment there, because I do think that that's a moment where we really need to honor public transportation in a city that really struggles with it. So I think that the opportunity is there amid all of the challenges too. I'd love to see how that goes. I often do this, as I'm sure some parents are great. My question often is when we have design teams that are trying to set a design intent for scope outside of their project, how can we make sure that that continues forward? Because to me, the Lamar Street transformation is so crucial to the entire project. And if it's out of scope, I don't know, I always look to the city and I say, what kind of weight could we put behind this? Because it must be in tandem.
I think you can make the comments, and I know the team's been working with our transportation department, and we have a transportation department people here in case there's a question. But yeah, certainly provide those comments, and it'll be a matter of, is that within their scope and something that they can influence? Because as the first component of 7 components, it'll likely come up again in some other ways, and this is the time to think about it. So,
Okay, that's good to know. Then I suppose my comment is, continuing to work with the city to make sure that the Lamar Street transportation streetscape, happens. And the reason I'm thinking about this is all of my conference experiences, if there are more than 4 lanes of roads, I'm not gonna cross. I just don't have time between all of the, programming. So I think that the modifications are really central to actually making it more porous and encouraging people to explore. So yes, I was really excited about that, and sad to hear that wasn't actually part of the project. And then my other comment is about, as a pseudo public building receiving a lot of public funding, I would love to see more of an expression of our values as a city as expressed by CCAP. And I think that it's doing it in a lot of places. And landscape often is kind of the heavy lifter where we see, rain gardens and biodiversity and things like that. And I think it's off to a great start. But just continuing to really fine tune that so that when someone looks at this building and they know Dallas is about low carbon construction, Dallas is about biodiversity, this is like the new face of our city. And I think just really continuing to push that, like Jesse said earlier, PV is great, maybe there's an opportunity for green roofs on some of the non-used space and that's visible from the conference center, things like that that I think are becoming the standard elsewhere that would be really great to see expressed in this project for what it symbolizes. And then my last comment is very, very fine-tuned, but it's about that plaza. That 30-foot strip, we said that was spiraling, and that's being mandated by, I imagine, the fire chief.
This is the building.
Yeah, this is the building, okay. Yeah, I appreciate the strategy that Terry went down about imagining it all green and then just stripping away what you need to, and that 30 feet, it's so rough. So that's a recommendation that I make visually as well about we need to really think about this as a city because it creates these urban heat canyons that are non-usable and 30 feet of pavement is just not, it's not acceptable, I think.
Yeah, I calculated 1.5 acres. His number was actually higher than what I.
Yeah. And I understand that's not a constraint you have control over that. Really, really well done, and it would be great to dive in further for that circulation.
Thank you. Good. Okay, now I'll wrap this up. First, thanks again for coming and bringing a tremendous amount of information. There's so much information, unfortunately. We're going to leave a lot of stuff on the table and have probably a lot of questions left over. And so I apologize for not managing our time a little better. I know that we're rushed and maybe couldn't get into some of these bigger discussions as we go. That said, I will also mention that we have, let me go back to my comments. I got 3 areas I want to touch on. Number one, since I'm the architect, I love the way the building stacks, the whole stack thing with the outdoor spaces and all. That seems, I don't know anything else like that. I think that makes a ton of sense. I'm going to go out this afternoon and invest in some escalator companies. But I saw what happened to Cotton Bowl, and man, you have a big order to put in for the same to make that work. But it's that part is really, really great on the building. Secondly, my head still spins a little bit with the ground floor plan. The mobility hub is where I started, but really there is so much going on down there. And I like our other folks here. I hear what you're saying about how that's cool space and all the things going on. I don't see it. I also go back to what DART does underneath the convention center today, and adding 6 feet to that doesn't fix it. So you've obviously got a lot more stuff in mind that we don't know and maybe don't immediately go to. We have done separate workshops for projects, not often, but on occasion. If people were interested, I would be interested. I would very much love an extended 2-hour, 3-hour session just talking about that really critical intersection of what this building will do, how it impacts all of these systems, and there's a lot to sort through right there. So that's it's an important part of it. The last thing I'll say is architecturally, I have to admit that I don't see your vision for the building itself as it faces onto, Lamar Street. When I first looked at it, and I haven't gotten past it since, seems all very familiar to me. Frankly, it looks a lot like it. The way the forms are, that 1,000-foot curvature thing with the road paralleling it most of its way, you know, it just makes me want to pack my bags. But that's not what this is. And it is going to be the western edge of this new development, this downtown revitalization and the expansion possibilities this makes are on our lips every day these days. What it involves with this building to what you're doing here, it's such an important place. And I would personally think as a more pedestrian experience, I would love to see that building tell us a little bit more about what's happening naturally. It changes so much as you go along that 1,000-foot at the ground level, but there's no reflection of that from what we see here. There's no clear entry points. My God, there's a train coming out of the side of that building, and I didn't pick it up for a long time. You know, that would be quite a surprise to folks who come through here. I think something, I don't know how to specify uniquely Dallas, but I think something more with a different articulation. There's opportunities there to make the building more interesting and for it to sort of spur some of the kinds of development on the other side that you show in your mood boards in here, which tend to be very detailed and very pedestrian, and even, God forbid, have sort of an historic reference to some of the images and stuff. It doesn't start with this. This is something else right here. And frankly, something I think we've got a lot of in Dallas. We've got a lot of mid-century buildings with very tall glass walls and plazas out in front. And this board struggles with those a couple of times a year as they come before us. I'd like to see us, I would hope we find something a little more unique there and perhaps a little bit more pedestrian friendly. And with that, I want to stop because it is us 10 minutes after I'm more sad than I thought. So thank you again. I mean, I appreciate your time. We'd like a lot more of it if that's possible. And thanks for the panel for their careful consideration. And with that, I think it's time to adjourn. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Good job.